Today we're going to be looking at the Jet, the ultra-compact travel stroller from Silvercross. Silvercross is one of those old names in stroller manufacturing, going back to 1877 when they were one of the pioneers for those big stagecoach type designs. For this reason, within the very niche world of vintage stroller restoration and collecting, they're actually one of the most common brands. As a modern company though, at least when it comes to strollers, I know they do a variety of other childcare products as well, I've unfortunately never been that overly impressed with their products from a mechanical perspective. Now granted, we're located in Norway, not the English heartland, so the models we've seen in the workshop do not encompass the entirety of their range. Thus, while I've worked on a few vintage models, my experience with the modern line has mostly consisted of cheaper models like the Elegance, the Dazzle, and the Pop. And while I haven't been particularly impressed with their engineering, I have no doubt that if you wanted to dish out 2,000 British pounds for a Balmoral or something, craftsmanship would probably be impeccable. In terms of their lighter travel line, however, Silvercross, like McLaren, is one of those companies to have, in my opinion, held on a bit too long to the classic umbrella design. And while the Jet is essentially also an umbrella stroller, one of the things that makes it interesting from a mechanical perspective is its incorporation of a few more common modern folding components introduced in order to redesign the umbrella concept so that it can fold small enough for cabin luggage. When I first saw pictures of the Jet, before getting a chance to actually poke at it with my screwdriver, three things immediately jumped out at me. Larger than average rear wheels, an adjustable footrest, and the Jet's horizontal fold, which could be either a good or a bad thing, depending on its purpose and execution. So with lots of hopeful expectations and a lot of viewers' comments requesting a review, we finally got a hold of a Jet to have a closer look. I'll tell you in a moment how it matched up to our expectations, but first let's start with a few stats. Folded down, the Jet clocks in at 18 by 30 by 55 centimeters, and it weighs 5.9 kilos. With regards to weight capacity, it can take up to 15 kilos in the seat. But for you new parents out there, the truth is that you're most likely going to be finished with strollers before your kid actually reaches 15 kilos. The Jet only takes 1 kilo in its shopping basket, which is far below average, but frankly, that's a-okay with me. Despite a lot of people out there trying hard to use their ultra compacts as daily strollers, a really bad idea by the way, that is not what they're designed for. And when you're actually traveling, the ability to quickly fold down and fold up your stroller is, in my opinion, a lot more important than storage capacity. And when you pack up that basket, you can't really fold your stroller. Okay, we're going to deal with comfort now. How comfortable the Silvercross Jet is for you to use, and how comfortable it is for your child to be pushed around in. And I'm going to start this section with a caveat. I'm going to judge the Silvercross Jet for comfort as it comes out of the box, as in a new Silvercross Jet. The reason I'm pointing this out is that I think there are a number of pretty serious longevity issues with the mechanics of this model, and I unfortunately do not anticipate it to perform as well, or thus to be as comfortable to use after a year or two, depending of course on how hard you use it. Right out of the box though, the Jet pops up quite easily into a pleasantly large and drivable stroller. Unfolding, in particular, is incredibly simple. Just a matter of flicking off the safety catch, extending the whole thing with that classic umbrella foot pedal, and making sure the handle and side joints have all popped into place. And what you get unfolded is quite nice. The seat and canopy are spacious, the seat reclines flat, and it has that rarely seen adjustable footrest, making for excellent sleeping conditions. Note that I do not recommend using ultra-compact strollers with newborns, regardless of the model. The Jet folds down easily as well, using a double button activation mechanism on the handle and a release lever to push with your foot. I would actually say that due to the smaller size and weight, as well as the handle release, the Jet feels even easier to fold than a traditional umbrella stroller, which I always found a bit cumbersome. When folded, if you want, you can put the travel sleeve around it. But as with the Babies and Yo-Yo's travel bag, my guess is that most people won't bother wasting time with this while on the go. The configuration of the bumper bar as a long handle is actually quite nice on the Jet. Shorter people can wheel it around if they want, but what I like about it is that it's long enough to hook over your shoulder in lieu of a strap, though for this purpose I do wish they had added padding in the middle. Driving-wise, the handle is more or less high enough, unless you're really tall. It's 96 centimeters off the floor. More importantly though, the Jet feels pretty solid to push around, even outside of the airport, thanks in part to a decently rigid chassis despite the horizontal folding elements, and even more to its large wheels, 6 inches in the front, which is on the larger end of standard for ultra compacts, and a whopping 7.5 inches in the back, the biggest I've ever seen on a stroller of this class. So far so good. Let's make a couple notes on maintenance and then move on to mechanics. Lubrication wise, there's not much to be done on this model. Since it has removable front wheels, I do recommend applying a thicker lubricant, preferably bi-roll food industry grease or silicone putty, every now and then. And it's also a good idea to shoot some WD-40 into the brake system to keep the wire sliding well. The Jet's brake system is not disassembly friendly though, and the wheels don't have ball bearings. So if there are problems here, lubrication is actually unlikely to be an easy way of fixing them. Removing the fabrics for a wash is difficult on the Jet, as all the textiles are screwed on, which suggests that they are not intended to be removed. This is to me the first of many warning signs about the eventual longevity of the stroller, as if you plan on using it for several years, you will probably have to wash it every now and then. Okay, let's move on to mechanics, top to bottom. Okay, so the first mechanical area of the stroller that we're going to deal with is the whole folding setup, because there are quite a lot of hinged elements on this stroller that are all designed in order to get it to fold down as it folds down. The lower portions of the stroller generally follow the same sort of umbrella aesthetic as you would find on older Silvercross or McLaren models, with the exception of the fact that there is a bar that runs from the back, very common sort of a graded folding apparatus, to the front, to this hinge that is loose and does not actually lock in place. The parts of the stroller that are based on a newer sort of engineering system have to do with the top of the stroller. So there's this 2-button lock and release, and what this is going to more importantly activate, other than folding the handle inwards, is it's going to pull out a pair of plastic cylinders inside here, which lock into wells here and lock the stroller in place along this axis. So what you wind up with is a locking mechanism here at the back, a locking mechanism here at the top that activates the locking mechanisms here at the side, and you have a hinged assembly here that is just loose and held in place when the various locks are pulled into the correct position, as well as a hinge here in the front that is pulled in place when everything is locked together. What winds up happening when you have this sort of a setup is that the kinetic energy, in addition to rattling at all of the other riveted hinge points on the stroller, is essentially transferred to the points where the stroller actually locks in place. And I would put my money on the first area of braking on the stroller eventually being right here on the sides, simply because of how small that cylinder is that locks into this well here. I've seen similar sorts of designs on older Emelunga and Teutonia models, and there has been problems with braking. Overall though, I don't think you're going to see a lot of braking problems other than with my concerns over that point on this stroller, but you will wind up with the same sort of problems you have on older umbrella strollers, which is that because there are so many hinged areas, you will wind up with a lot of looseness after a while, especially since most of those points are riveted in place, and rivets do have a tendency to loosen. In addition, of course, you get a certain amount of looseness that you wouldn't get on a lot of non-umbrella type strollers, simply because of that horizontal fold, because it is not just going to get loose vertically, but it's going to get loose horizontally, right? That means side to side. So for me, when I first saw the Silvercross Jet and I noted that it had a horizontal fold, my kind of test as to whether that was a good design idea had to do with, have they used the horizontal fold to get a wider than average seat that folds down to just within cabin luggage specifications, because there's really no need to go smaller. You're just trying to fit within cabin luggage. And unfortunately, it folds down smaller than that horizontally, and it doesn't really extend much wider than a lot of the competition. So that means to me then that the horizontal fold on this model is sort of an unnecessary design choice, and it does introduce a certain amount of looseness to the stroller that could have been avoided if they had simply gone with a vertical sort of a fold. Okay, we're going to have a little bit of a closer look at the rear frame then. This whole assembly, again, is just sort of a traditional umbrella style folding assembly. We don't need to talk about that. But other elements of this rear end are where I began to be really disillusioned with this stroller, unfortunately. So we'll start with the brake system. The brake system incorporates a wire that runs from one side to the other, one side on, one side off. What I noticed initially with this wire, and several manufacturers do this and they shouldn't, is that there are no adjustment screws, and whenever you have a brake system that incorporates a wire, over time the inner portion of that wire is going to pull in relation to the outer portion, which is going to kind of shrink in a bit, and the wire will wind up getting looser, and then you'll have problems where the brakes stick, or the brakes won't apply. And the way you're supposed to be able to deal with this is with an adjustment screw somewhere on the brake wire, either at the feet or in the middle, in order to lengthen out that wire to accommodate for those changes in length between the outer tubing and the inner wire over time. That is not present here. To make matters worse, the back feet, where the brake system is actually housed, is like completely not disassemblable. It's one of these things that's just totally riveted together. Number one. The stroller in general is very hard to take apart, just rivets everywhere, very few screws other than in order to remove the textiles, which should have been easier than screws. Number two, the back wheels don't have ball bearings. The front wheels also don't have ball bearings. They're set up in a way where you can't really see this because it's not easy to, the back wheels are not removable. The front wheels are removable. That's also a thing that's very strange. The back wheels actually, the axle is just a very large rivet that has been driven right through behind this panel and then flattened out on the inside here. You cannot remove them, the back wheels, and there are no ball bearings. Over time, when you have this sort of a plastic wheel which has no ball bearings, it's going to loosen out on the inside, and you're going to wind up with a lot of looseness issues on these back wheels in general. So even though it has these big, beautiful 7.5-inch back wheels, they've kind of hidden the fact that they've cut corners, both in relation to the brake system, which is not openable and not adjustable, and the back wheels themselves, which have no ball bearings. And for me, that's kind of like sneaky in a way. It's cutting corners in places where customers aren't going to see it, but it will lead to longevity issues down the road. Okay, having a look at the front end, again, it has the 6-inch front wheels, which is fine size-wise, quite nice. It does have swivel locks. Some strollers nowadays don't have swivel locks when they come in the size class, and the swivel lock is actually of an okay design, so I don't have any problems there. The front wheels are removable, which I find to be kind of strange again, considering the back wheels are not. And if I had a choice, if I had to choose between front wheels and back wheels being removable, I would choose back wheels or no wheels at all. Because when you have removable front wheels, it means that you haven't used like wave washers and locking washers in order to get like a really tight fit on that front wheel, to have it sit in tight and then really not develop wobbly problems down the road. And since there's no inbuilt wobble protection, there's no like spring-loaded plates that hold this top housing tight down onto the fork. Of course, the stroller just came out, but I would guess that you're going to wind up with wobbly problems down the road. Maybe it takes 3-4 years, depending on how much you use the stroller, but eventually that axle is going to loosen up inside that housing, and if you go at speed, you're going to wind up with some wobble problems. But in any case, that's only time will tell on that. A bigger problem, again, is that there are no ball bearings, and the axle is riveted directly through. Of course, if you have any sort of problems with this, you can remove the front wheels and just switch it entirely out. I don't know how much that will wind up costing. But again, it kind of points to this idea that they're hiding lack of a very common industry standard that they would have ball bearings inside the wheels, and making it hard for people to actually remove and see what's going on because the whole thing is riveted together. And it's just another one of those points, like as they done on the back wheels and on the brakes and with the screwing in of the textiles, that sort of points towards this stroller as being designed to use until it develops problems and not really being easy to fix afterwards. So, should you consider getting the Silvercross Jet? I have to admit, even though I was really excited about the stroller when I first saw pictures of it, I'm not quite as happy now that I've had the chance to see how it works. It seems to me that though they've done a lot of work to make it look flashy on the surface, with all the leather and shiny hood ornaments, with a big seat and good initial drivability, under the hood, where it's harder for average people to check, they've cut a lot of corners. My general take on this stroller then is that it's going to be really nice to use right out of the box, but that it's not intended to last. And given the price tag, I would have expected a bit more forward thinking concerning what sort of problems will eventually occur with the stroller and how to make it easier for the end customer to deal with those problems, instead of just tossing the whole thing on the junk pile. In any case, we hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, we ask that you subscribe, as it helps us continue making videos in the future. Thank you.